Hi, Emma. You graduated our school with a degree in financial management some time ago.
A long time ago.
And then you joined this tiny little startup in Berlin called Remerge as an account manager. And now to some of our students or alumni, who knows, maybe even the program director, that kind of a career jump might not be the most obvious one coming from a finance degree. You know, people generally end up in private equity, investment banking. So I'm wondering kind of what intrigued you about joining a startup, and what were some of the skills that you took from your finance degree that you could leverage in that startup world, let's say?
So I definitely took a very unpopular career decision back then. I think I was the only one in my class. Went into tech and sales. I think a few reasons. Firstly, I fell in love in startups through your class. There was a really good foundation on entrepreneurship and startups and what the whole world is all about. And I also think there's a kind of like a general appeal for startups because you have a lot of flexibility, a lot of responsibility. You can grow really fast. And all of these were kind of like very appealing for me. And I always think that skills are truly transferable. A lot of the things I learned from finance I use in tech in my sales job. For example, some really core skill sets I learned was strategic thinking, kind of like analysis and a lot of like data analysis, how the global markets work. And all of these skills are important for any career, and more so in any business, especially in a business that's now figuring out itself. So that's kind of like a few of the things I'm using in my job every day from a finance degree.
Another thing that we're very big on is kind of learning from mistakes. And so I also wanted to ask you, you've obviously had a very successful career, but what has been kind of your biggest fail, and what did you learn from that?
Yeah, I've had so many more failures than I had successes, but it always works that way. You have to fail, and at some point you're gonna succeed. I guess if I had to pick one, I work for Braze right now. And then it took me 3.5 years to actually get a job at Braze. I got a no in 2019. I got another no in 2020 and another no in 2021. Because essentially I was working for a smaller startup and I wanted to kind of like jump to a bigger company. And then I realized a lot of the skill sets I got in a smaller startup were not the same as needed in a bigger company. So while I was getting rejected, I tried to build a relationship with our president that became my mentor. And then I kind of like help him understand and get to know me on a personal level versus what my resume says. So even though I didn't have the exact experience for the job he was recruiting for, he got to know me on who I am as a person, what are my skill sets, what's my leadership style, what's my values. And essentially I got the job in summer 2021, and I didn't even apply. He just was like, "Are you ready?" I was like, "I'm ready," and then I got an offer. But that's, I think, the biggest failure, and I learned the importance of mentors, advocates, build relationship on a human level, and really differentiate what the resume says with who you are as a human.
So you ended up staying at Remerge for 7 years, and then you grew the business from 5 people, so really very early on in the startup stage, to 250 as VP of Global Revenue. And so that makes me wonder, I mean, that's a huge growth journey you went through with Remerge. So I'm sure there's also here some lessons learned in terms of the key growth challenges that you went through.
Yeah. The first thing is a little bit related to what I said earlier about having a focus on your TAM and your ideal customer profile. At some point, you need to assign a different P&L by a region or even product line. Because you're trying to figure out, make decisions based on how, obviously, the profitability of the region and of the specific product line. In the beginning, in a startup, everything is obviously growth at all costs. At some point, you figure out, well, I have to be profitable at some point. So that helps us a lot, get a little bit more granular level, understanding what parts of the business we are profitable. And then that also takes business decisions and strategy decisions, where to invest, where not to invest, where to kind of like hire more people, where to decrease the team. So that's the first thing that's very helpful. And then, as I said, if you're a multi-product organization, the same exercise applies for that, for different product lines, not just like the regional split. And then the second one was everyone's favorite topic, talking about org structure. And what's the most optimal org structure for your organization or your business? We went through maybe 3 or 4 reorgs.
Joy, oh joy.
Yeah, just because just for the fun. But no, it's interesting, right? Because an org structure for 50 people break most likely at 100, 150 people. The same thing when you're 150 people to 250 people. So you have to figure out as you grow what org structure makes the most sense for your organization, for the talent you have, the product you're selling, and also your culture as a company.
What would be like your top 3, let's say, suggestions for them in terms of if they want to scale their sales and their sales teams?
Yeah, scaling a sales team it's not easy, because if you think about it, sales are the most expensive people you hire. We make a lot of money, and then there's people don't realize, but also we get a lot of responsibility, right? Because if you don't drive numbers and you're not successful, you're automatically out. It's a very performance-based job. The first thing is you need to make sure your sales teams are aligned and have a proper structure in a concept like you can drive revenues from new business, essentially closing new deals, but also a growing existing customers. So you might want to think about how can I have someone, let's say it's a slightly different skill set, a growing existing customers versus building new customers. Both impact the bottom line, right? So you need to think about how you're going to about structuring a team that does both. And the second thing is you want to make sure you invest on sales enablement. You need to make sure your salespeople know how to talk to customers in terms of business problems we're solving versus feature and functionality. Especially if you're selling an expensive product, you need to make sure your salespeople speaking that language, because you're most likely to get, let's say, you close a deal if you touch yourself to business problems. Let's say I buy Braze because I solve X KPI versus just a feature and functionality. We saw a huge impact in our sales productivity when we actually invested on proper sales enablement. And maybe the last thing is you need to look at your overall TAM, the customers you're going after, and you need to figure out how these people buy software, Braze software. How do they buy software? Because I would argue, and most people know that work in large organizations, a company of 100 people buys software differently than a company that's 1,000 people, because they have less resources, they have less sophisticated needs. So you really need to adjust your sales team to specific segments. Now at Braze we have like 5 different segments how we go to market, like our very small customers all the way to like really large enterprises, because we realize how we go to market and how we're telling our story of who Braze is and what problems we solve is very customized based on the segment we are talking to.